Greetings, everyone. My name is James Okech of James Okech and Company Advocates. We are a full-service law firm located in Nairobi, in Kenya. Creative and innovative problem solving is at the heart of what we do. We practice and give advisories in relation to all aspects of the law. However, we specialize in commercial law, technology, and innovation practice. We are also proud members of the EALG, which has members in Europe, Africa, America, among other jurisdictions. Each member has their own unique attributes and knowledge of their local market, as well as substantial experience and expertise representing clients with cross-border legal needs. I will be taking you through this presentation, touching and highlighting on an introduction to doing business in Kenya. I will take you through a couple of things, including the legal system in Kenya, as well as establishing different types of entities. And finally, I'll also talk about the operations and running of the business that has been formed. So by way of introduction, Kenya is a vibrant country located in East Africa, with its capital city being Nairobi. English and Swahili are the country's official languages. However, there are over 47 other languages spoken in the country. Kenya uses the Kenya shilling as its currency. $1 is the equivalent of approximately 142 Kenya shillings. And Kenya has approximately 54 million people. Kenya has a multi-party political system whose hallmark is a parliamentary democracy. And Kenya's parliament is a bicameral house consisting of the National Assembly and the Senate. We also have elections which take place every 5 years. This is a map of Africa. Kenya is here on the eastern side. Its capital, as I said, is Nairobi. Kenya is very well geographically placed, I would say. There are quite a number of countries that are landlocked, including Uganda, Rwanda, and Burundi, which Kenya acts as a doorway to these East African countries. Kenya also has various major, let me just go back. Kenya has various major port cities. On this map, you can see Mombasa. We also have Lamu, and it is a major regional hub for business and trade throughout East and Central Africa. Kenya is a member of the East African Community, which is an economic trading bloc currently comprising the economies of Kenya, Rwanda, Tanzania, Uganda, Burundi, the Democratic Republic of Congo, as well as South Sudan. I'll also take you through the legal system in Kenya. The Kenyan legal system is descended from the British common law system. The legal regime in Kenya is primarily hinged on the Constitution, as well as statutes, Kenyan case law, English case law, African customary law when it comes to succession, as well as matrimonial matters. And we also use foreign ratified laws, which are not inconsistent with the Constitution of Kenya. I'll also take you through establishing a business. And here I will begin by talking about Kenya as a trade and investment hub. The country's capital, Nairobi, has really made a name for itself as a regional hub for trade, commerce, innovation, and technology. And plans are underway to take the city to the next level, which is that of becoming a global financial hub. In addition, Nairobi is a major continental tech hub, and it is popularly known as the Silicon Savannah. The city's tech ecosystem hosts many innovation hubs and hundreds of startups. Kenya is also, as I mentioned, a major trade hub through its port cities. In living up to its Silicon Savannah name, Kenya built a smart city by the name Konza Technopolis, which is a key flagship project of Kenya's Vision 2030 economic development portfolio. This project seeks to have Konza, or Konza City, as a world-class city powered by a thriving information, communications, and technology sector, superior reliable infrastructure, and business-friendly governance systems. In this sector, we have acted for several entities, including digital lenders, in relation to obtaining and acquiring the requisite licenses. We have also advised various startups within the technological space who have gone on to commercialize innovations. We have also given advisories to startups in the fintech industry in relation to novel areas of the law in Kenya, that is, relating to data security, data protection, and compliance when it comes to neobanks in Kenya. We have also undertaken various trainings on behalf of clients in relation to steps to be taken in order to comply with various personal data protection laws, as well as the data ethics framework on how to use data appropriately and responsibly. Kenya also has Nairobi International Financial Center, which was a step forward in making Nairobi a financial hub. And it shows the country's openness as an economy and its confidence in its own ability to compete on the world stage. The center has been in the works since 2014, and it is meant to help direct international investment in Kenya, as well as Africa at large. The center has also enabled companies and investors to take advantage of trade and investment opportunities, and aims to raise more than $2 billion in investments by the year 2030. Examples of international financial centers in Africa include Cape Town, Casablanca, Mauritius, and Johannesburg. We also have similar centers outside Africa in New York, London, Shanghai, and Hong Kong. Additionally, Nairobi is the global headquarters of the United Nations Environment Programme, UNEP. We also have the United Nations Office for Project Services, UNOPS, as well as UN Habitat, all being stationed in Nairobi. I'll also talk about foreign investment, which is greatly encouraged by the government. We have various acts and statutory bodies whose main objective is to promote investments in Kenya. I would say that it is fairly easy and not complex at all for foreign investment to be done in Kenya, with the various incentives being put in place for investors. Some of these incentives include with companies operating in economic zones, as well as export processing zones. These companies, for instance, in the export processing zones, benefit from a 10-year corporate tax holiday and a 25% tax thereafter, instead of paying a 30% corporate tax. Additionally, these companies also enjoy a 10-year withholding tax holiday and stamp duty exemption. These companies also have the incentive in relation to a 10-year withholding tax exemption on dividend and remittances paid to non-residents. And there is an expedited customs procedures, as well as the other listed incentives there. When it comes to restrictions, insofar as foreign investment is concerned, I beg your pardon, there are very few restrictions which are present in Kenya. One which is about to be removed is that of 30% local shareholding for operators in the ICT sector. The same is currently under review and will soon be entirely removed. The other restriction, which is important to note, is on companies with foreign shareholding, which must procure various exemptions when it comes to acquiring of agricultural land in Kenya. Kenya is a major exporter of cash crops such as tea and coffee. Therefore, there are quite a number of multinationals who have set up vast estates growing some of these crops. Therefore, this is a measure which also seeks to protect local investors, as well as the local players in that industry. Other than that, when it comes to foreign investment, there are quite a number of companies who have set up in Kenya. For instance, Google opened a tech hub in Nairobi as part of its Africa investment program. And it is also investing in its first ever African product development hub, which seeks to increase access to cheap and fast internet, support local entrepreneurs and SMEs, as well as to help nonprofit organizations. Google also announced that it would be launching its product development center, which is the company's first such facility in Africa. Other than Google, Microsoft also launched one of 2 Africa Development Center sites in Nairobi. Giant financial payment solutions firm Visa also launched a global innovation hub. And Amazon has also expressed its intention to launch an Amazon Web Series local zone in Kenya. Kenya also recently launched the largest electric motorcycle assembly plant, the largest in East Africa, that is called Rome Park in Nairobi. Now, when talking about the different entities one can form as a business vehicle, I'll talk about Kenyan companies, and here we'll go through private limited liability companies because they're the most commonly formed entities. And they're favored because they are particularly easy to register. And a private company must have at least one shareholder and one director, the latter of whom must be a natural person. A public company, on the other hand, must have at least 2 directors. There is no legal requirement, or rather, on paper, there is no requirement that the directors or shareholders must be strictly Kenyan. However, in practice, there must be at least one Kenyan as a director or shareholder, due to the fact that the company must register for tax the declarations with our Kenya Revenue Authority, which generates a Kenya Revenue Authority PIN for at least one director. So it leads to the conclusion that at least one of the directors must be Kenyan. Additionally, when it comes to acquiring of this KRA PIN or PIN certificate or PIN number, it is fairly straightforward. It is something that is automated and takes a very short time to acquire. When it comes to forming a Kenyan company, it is also fairly easy owing to the fact that we have an online business registration system, popularly known as BRS, which outlines a step-by-step procedure for anyone who seeks to incorporate a company. The costs are also quite affordable when it comes to forming a Kenyan company. It requires only a fee of 10,000 Kenyan shillings, which is averagely 77 US dollars for incorporation of a Kenyan company. I'll also talk about establishing a foreign company in Kenya, or a foreign entity in Kenya. A foreign company registered outside Kenya can either register a branch office in Kenya or register a local entity. With the exception of certain specific tax considerations, the effect of establishing a local Kenyan company as opposed to a branch of a foreign company does not considerably differ from a Kenyan legal perspective. There are various documents which one must provide in the event that they seek to establish a branch in Kenya. And I've listed them down there. They include the address of the principal registered office of the foreign company, as well as the charter, statutes, memorandum, and articles of association of the company. It's also important to note that when it comes to the minimum foreign investment, or for you to qualify for investment incentives, the minimum foreign investment is 100,000 USD, which is also not quite high for anyone who is looking to set up shop in Kenya. The other entity which people commonly form is a partnership. There are 3 types of partnerships here. You have general partnerships, limited partnerships, and limited liability partnerships. It is easier to register a partnership in Kenya than a company, since it has fewer and less stringent requirements. But people, for various reasons, always opt to incorporate companies. I'll also take you through running of the business and some of the items you should be keen on whenever the business is operating. First and foremost, of course, is on labor relations, since you know that operating a business demands the presence of employees, as they are the cogs that move the enterprise's wheels. So there are various legislations which I've mentioned there, including the Employment Act, the Labor Relations Act, and the Work Injuries Benefits Act. The Employment Act forms the substratum of all these legislations, as it lays out the fundamental elements that must be adhered to with respect to certain irreducible minimums of an employment contract, the benefits the employee is to enjoy, the disciplinary process, the termination procedures, and so forth. I must say that the various provisions of the law touching on labor relations go to a great extent to protect employees, noting that there is always that unequal bargaining power present in an employment relationship. So the Kenyan employment laws, as well as our labor relations court, in conjunction with legislation in place, has really safeguarded the rights and, or rather have really safeguarded the rights and freedoms of employees. Another item that was very popular, especially coming out of 2020 and COVID-19, is that a lot of entities, mostly foreign entities, applied the use of employers of record, EORs, who serve as third-party or intermediaries of the employer for tax purposes, for payroll management, employee contracts, employee onboarding, as well as termination of employees. They're quite popular for remote work organizations and are fairly cost-effective. During that period, 2020 to 2021, we had a lot of clients coming in insofar as legal compliance advisories are concerned when it came to the labor relations aspect vis-a-vis foreign entities and Kenyan law. So when it comes to termination of employees, termination of employment in Kenya must be both substantively and procedurally fair, in that notices and reasons for termination must be valid, and hearings must be conducted before any termination is done. Whereby no hearing can be done and a summary dismissal is undertaken, then the procedure insofar as procedural fairness must be considered, and those reasons must be valid. The other form of termination, which also is a hotbed for litigation as well as legal compliance work here, is on redundancies. And also this was also could also be linked to the COVID-19 period, whereby a lot of employees were being let go, and a lot of foreign, especially foreign entities, got into trouble when it came to the process relating to redundancy. In Kenya, there are various notices that have to be issued before redundancy is done, and there also has to be certain considerations insofar as the classes of employees being declared redundant is concerned. Still on labor relations, foreign employees and their employers must acquire work permits for employees under our Immigration Act. There are 9 categories, 9 different work permits. These different classes outline the parameters of what the individual can or cannot do pursuant to their permit. Once again, the process for acquiring permits is also quite simplified. and the cost of the same is affordable. I'll also touch on taxes. We have various tax laws, and our tax regime is also subject to quite a lot of litigation at the moment in relation to the tax rates. We have a new Finance Act, which is being challenged in court. However, that notwithstanding, these are some of the rates of tax. We have our VAT at 16%, corporate tax for Kenyan companies at 30%, but for foreign companies, it is at 37.5%. Withholding tax is at 25%, capital gains tax at 15%. We also have a digital service tax, which is at 1.5% of the gross transaction value from services derived from or accruing from a business carried out over the internet or an electronic network, including through a digital marketplace. This particular tax caused a lot of uproar, especially to content creators and online platforms which mainly operate on the digital marketplace. There are also a couple of tax incentives which I had alluded to earlier, especially for investments. We have double tax agreements with various countries. We have wear and tear allowances, but these are only charged, of course, on capital expenditure, on machinery and equipment. There are various classes when it comes to that. There are also some tax incentives for companies and entities in the telecommunications sector, for entities dealing in computer software. And there are some exemptions in VAT when it comes to donor-funded projects, as well as upon recommendation by government entities such as our Foreign Affairs docket. I'll also take you through briefly on our intellectual property as well as data protection regime. We have various instructive acts touching on intellectual property. Kenya also has a national rights registry, which facilitates online registration of copyrights. This platform allows a rights holder to access their work and generate a certificate at any time. We have also given advisories to various companies, both local and international, in relation to their copyright, trademark, and other IP rights. In relation to data protection, this is a new and emerging field when it comes to the Kenyan legal system. We have a Data Protection Act of 2019 and other regulations and guidelines which came after in 2021 and 2022. Under this act, there has been the creation of the Office of the Data Commissioner, who handles various disputes. And when it comes to data protection, we have also, as mentioned earlier, advised various companies in relation to data protection, collection and retention policies, privacy and access rights. We've also advised various online platform companies on software and technology-related intellectual property rights. On data protection in Kenya, we've also advised hospital and healthcare facilities, especially on data protection compliance. The other item to take cognizance of is on environmental considerations. The various acts and steps Kenya has taken when it comes to the environment and its carbon footprint. And here, when you talk about environmental considerations, we also talk about, we must also mention the real estate and conveyancing bit of the legal system in Kenya, whereby there are various entities whereby you must obtain certain licenses before any construction or developments occur. As I was saying, Kenya has taken bold steps to reaffirm its commitment to lowering its carbon footprint. We have a State Department for Environment and Climate Change and our Ministry of Environment and Climate Change, as well as Forestry. We also have various legislation which are being tabled. We have a Climate Change Amendment Bill 2023. We also have Carbon Credit Trading and Benefit Sharing Bill 2023, which seeks to regulate carbon trading and facilitate equitable benefit sharing. Kenya also published a green fiscal policy, which is being implemented, and the government here is trying to provide various incentives to develop and expand infrastructure, for instance, that supports e-mobility and non-motorized transport. We recently acted for Autoparks Limited, which is a leading electric vehicle company in Kenya, who collaborated with a leading automotive manufacturer from China in an engineering services and partnership agreement for production of electric vehicles for the Kenyan market. Lastly, I'll take you through dispute resolution in Kenya. And the most prominent dispute resolution mechanism in Kenya is litigation through the courts. Our apex court is the Supreme Court, and we have other specialized courts such as our Employment and Labor Relations Court and our Environmental Land Court. We also have other subordinate courts. In 2020, Kenya also rolled out an e-filing platform for litigants and users, which has enhanced access to justice across the country. We have also tried to have justice being accessed at the smallest scale. We have a special court called the Small Claims Court, which deals with disputes which do not exceed over 1 million shillings, which is around 7,000 USD. And these disputes need to be heard and determined within 60 days. So SMEs and smaller companies and individuals have really benefited from this court. Additionally, the Kenyan bench and judiciary is slowly becoming a jurisprudential powerhouse in Africa and the global south, with some of the determinations that have been coming out of our Supreme Court and Court of Appeal. Apart from litigation through the courts, we also use other alternatives, including arbitration, whereby we use the Arbitration Act of 1995, modeled on the United Nations Commission on Trade Law arbitration rules, which govern all matters arbitration in Kenya. We also have mediation and negotiations as a manner of dispute resolution in Kenya. That concludes my presentation.